Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, I'm quite excited about today's guest for a number of reasons. One, how the two guests met and what they're doing together now is an inspirational story in itself. They're focused on empowering more women to build their own business, their own tech startup, and they help them get funded. Now, the CEO and founder, Marisa Warren, will be joining us today, along with the founding board director, Karen Jacobsen, who possibly has the most recognisable voice in the world. She, of course, is the voice of Siri and GPS and so much more. It really is an amazing story, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York City so we can speak with Marisa Warren and Karen Jacobsen. So a massive warm welcome to the show, ladies. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name's Marisa Warren. I'm the CEO and founder of Elevacao Foundation, and we are empowering women entrepreneurs to build and launch tech businesses.
And I am Karen Jacobsen. I'm known as the GPS Girl. I'm a singer-songwriter whose voice has ended up in over 1 billion GPS and smartphone devices around the world, unexpectedly giving directions. And I have an empowerment brand called the GPS Girl. And I help people to recalculate their businesses and lives and create futures that they love.
Fantastic. Now, after hearing over 500 different stories on this show from tech leaders, there are so many instances where people are thrown together in the right place at the right time. Now, I believe your story has elements of serendipity too. So can you tell me how your story began in New York City when both Marisa met Karen in an elevator? Can you tell me more about that? You didn't get stuck in the elevator, did you?
Yeah. No, I love telling this story. It's really interesting, the serendipity, and when you're really passionate about something, just the amazing people you meet. So for me, after sort of 19 years of being in the tech industry, so I work for companies like SAP, Microsoft, Workday across Australia and New York. I had some great successes and had also male mentors along the path. But whenever I'd reach out to women in executive leadership positions, they'd fall into sort of one or two categories. Either they'd see me as a competitive threat and would try and sabotage me, or old school, they would say, no, I fought my way up to get to this position. You've got to do the hard yards yourself. I'm not going to help you. And I just found that absolutely ridiculous. I'm somebody who's very passionate about helping other people, and in particular women, to be successful. And it just so happened Sheryl Sandberg's book came out that time. I was living in the fabulous New York City, as was Karen, walked into the elevator, and immediately we start connecting over Sheryl's book. Literally by the time we get to the ground floor, we're like, oh my gosh, we're both like-minded women. We both want to help other women. We've got to do something together. So from there, we created a little video together that deliberately titled Why Women Sabotage Each Other. To get the attention, to get people talking about it, because we felt that it was both of us had experienced it, me in the tech world, Karen in the entertainment business. We wanted to get that conversation out there. As you can appreciate as well, that created a lot of buzz in New York City. So then we went on and we were invited to do an event at the Harvard Club. So from that point, Elevacao was born, because people came up to us afterwards and said, Marisa, Karen, you're onto something here. You need to take this global, women helping other women. So it was really, a very exciting time, and our worlds collided because we're both very passionate about helping other women.
And just to add on to that, I, by default, find myself to be a woman in tech because my speaking voice is giving people directions and telling them where to go and what to do through GPS devices and smartphones and elevators and cruise ships and software applications all the way around the world while we're here talking with you. And, I have had a number of situations where I've really been asked to be involved with women in tech events, panels, conferences, and had those opportunities. And I have decided to kind of step in and embrace that role because I am so passionate about empowering others, and to be able to be involved with Elevacao and to have been one of the initial people involved in the organisation and the incredible work that Marisa is spearheading has really been a great match for what I am passionate about.
And all this was only made possible because you broke the number one rule of speaking to someone in an elevator.
We did, Neil. We actually, it's like the poster child experience for the elevator pitch working literally in an elevator.
Absolutely.
I love it. Now, like you said there, you're both focused on empowering more women get tech-founded businesses to get funded. And I've read some pretty shocking stats on this that I wanted to share with the listeners today, which are that less than 2% of venture funding goes to women in the US. And yet women do get funding. They deliver an average of 35% higher ROI than their male-led firms. I mean, did those results surprise you? And can you tell me about that moment that made you actually go out there and turn a negative into a positive by actually doing something about it?
Yes, that's interesting. So part of that stat I really don't like, obviously the 2%, and the other part, the 35%. So it's interesting, after the Harvard Club event, and where we had, a lot of interest from people, then we had to, go and do the research. Okay, so what are we actually going to do here? How are we going to help women? And when doing our research, we came up with those shocking stats with the lack of funding that goes to women, but then also when you invest in them, just how much return on investment that they can actually deliver. So it does for us help give a message out there to say, you back a woman, she will make you more money. And when drilling into a little bit, deeper, part of the reasons for the lack of funding, whether it's the women's lack of self-confidence to go in there in the fundraising process. If they step up, then they're not always as successful as men. That's if they come to the table. A lot of them don't. Because they fear that fundraising process. Then you also have on the other side where you can still have some of those, whether it's conscious or unconscious biases coming from the investor side of the table around women starting, leading and growing successful tech businesses.
I am fascinated by what I have learned as a part of being a part of Elevacao and the work being done, that there are many women who have a great idea and then their delivery method is through tech. They weren't necessarily people who were STEM graduates who went and did a master's degree in technology. In fact, 95% of women do not have a tech degree. However, as I said, they've got this great idea of ways to make things better or more efficient or more workable or to make life more or business more successful, and their delivery method happens to be tech. So they find themselves, in a way, similarly to myself, accidentally or unexpectedly a woman in tech, and then working to figure that out. And, business skills are business skills in whatever industry you're in. And the fact that this particular industry is extremely male heavy, it just makes sense that there be more and more resources to assist redressing that balance or addressing that balance.
So do you have any stories that you can share about women who've actually come through the programme and the experts that you've involved in it as well?
Yes, absolutely. We've had many stars. Now, we've had just over 100 women across all of our locations. So, as I said, we launched in New York. We've rolled out to Sydney and Melbourne, and we've just launched in San Francisco this week. One stands out because she went from idea stage, so idea at our pitch event, came along to one of our pitch events, inspired by our women pitching. So they had a health tech business. So it's not just, women's related sort of businesses, these serious businesses, a health tech business. She went from that idea, she came through our program, partway through our program. She secured funding with one of our experts being the lead investor. From there, she went to build her product and then ended up winning TechCrunch Battlefield Australia, all within 12 months. So from idea stage to launch and winning one of the most sort of prestigious startup tech industry awards.
And there were a lot of men involved in this particular award process?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
So that, and, she's 25 years old. She's just a rock star. So we have many women like that are achieving great things. So whether it's winning those awards, getting funding, closing multi-million-dollar contracts. Then some of the experts that we have involved. So, for example, like the former country manager of Dropbox, who had sold his business to Salesforce.com, very accomplished guy. Senior executives, managing directors at Silicon Valley Bank, Salesforce, Macquarie Bank, etc., PricewaterhouseCoopers, through to investors as well at the major sort of investment firms. So the combination of the women that we attract and then also our experts made for a very good combination.
That's fantastic. Now, can I also ask, how does your success fee-based funding model actually different to accelerators, incubators or education programs out there? What is it you guys do differently?
Well, first of all, it is exciting to see Elevaco's focus, which is to get women pitch ready, and that it's, as a result, really been turning the funding model on its head. And Marisa is the expert to really share with you the nuts and bolts of that.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting. I think one of our entrepreneurs just now in San Francisco this week, she said, you're like a hybrid. Elevaco. You're not an accelerator in the traditional sense where you go through a 3 months, full intensive program, and you're not just pitch events. You're something in between. So that's, for our business model, but then also our funding model. So because we're a not-for-profit, we've focused on how do we make our women successful? Because if our women are successful, ultimately we will be successful. And then it's really looking at and it took us quite a while to get this funding model right before we rolled it out. But essentially it's a 3% success fee. So once our women close on a funding round after graduation, and they pay Elevaco a 3% success fee. Now the women love it because we're helping them to be successful, but then it's a pay it forward type model where they have that opportunity to help other women to go through our programs as well. Very different from the other sort of accelerators, etc., that are out there that might charge thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars up front, or they'll take a chunk of equity and give some dollars in return. So we're the reverse.
Now, I love how you've got quite a different business funding model there. And I'm glad you mentioned the word hybrid because, like you said, you're not an accelerator, you're not a networking event. Was that always your intention from the beginning to create that hybrid model, or did it just kind of happen by accident?
I think it evolved.
Yeah.
I remember in the early days, there was really such a need and then such a desire from those of us having those early conversations to do it all. And to, there was so much scope and there was just the potential to really create, 6 different ways to support women to be successful in tech. And I think it was a very smart move earlier in the piece to see where the traction came about and to really narrow that focus because, of course, in any business, you can move with velocity when you really focus in. And that's something that the team, noticed and that Marisa in particular identified and was ready to just hone in on. And I think that's been a big part of the success Elevaco's had, that quick success that we've had.
Absolutely. And we've found that by doing that as well, by being really narrow focused and also shortening the time. So our program itself, the face time is only 12 hours over 3 weeks. And then there are other opportunities for them to engage, like pitching at our pitch event post the program and etc. But because we're so narrow focus, and it's an easier step for women to commit to that program versus signing up for a 3-month accelerator, in addition to also helping to build up their confidence, they go, okay, this step I can handle. But that whole thought process that goes around, well, could I actually then go into a 3-month accelerator? There are a lot of objections that get thrown up for women, particularly if you think about our target demographic, where we have women of, from early 20s to mid 60s, all backgrounds, all socioeconomic sort of circumstances and ethnicities. So you'll have women that have children or don't, or planning. So they all have different needs on their life and their time. So committing to a longer term program was always going to be a struggle for them, and that's why we've had so much traction, because it's very specific and it builds up their confidence. So then after that, if they go, now I'm ready for a longer program, then they can take that step.
That is an incredibly serious subject, and I really applaud everything that you're doing there, but the world of tech can be a crazy place. So I've got to ask, do either of you have any funny stories that you can share with us from your time in tech? And Karen, as the voice of the Australian Siri, I believe, and Mrs. GPS, do people recognise your voice when you're out and about? Has that ever happened?
Well, I think that was kind of 3 questions in one, but I'm going to run with Neil. How's that?
Go for it.
Yes, people do recognise my voice, and oh my goodness, where do I even begin? It was very, very early in the piece. I would find people would be very excited when they would realise that it was my voice giving them directions in their car, and now answering questions in their phone. And I feel like I've almost heard it all. I've had people apologise to me for yelling at me and for swearing at me. And I had a little girl write a song in my honour. And then I received this beautiful letter from a 12-year-old girl, and she said, I wanted to let you know that you've been with our family for 4 years now, and we've taken lots of wonderful trips with you. We know that your name is Karen, but we call you Zoe after our pet bird who died. And, it's really quite beautiful, the interactions and how very familiar people often are with me when they meet me. And as a result, I've built my empowerment brand, and I made that connection between directions in the car and directions in life and business. And now I find myself traveling the world, giving opening and closing keynotes at conferences and helping businesses to recalculate and to keep going no matter what. So it's been all of it is a funny story. The whole progression of what has happened with my life and my business as a result of technology, it's unthinkable. And I remember one experience walking along a road or along a footpath next to a major arterial road, and hundreds of cars going past me on this walk, and looking up and seeing a GPS in every car as it went past. And just the enormity of my voice is everywhere. I still cannot quite grasp that. It's been a lot of years now, and it still seems unreal.
It's got to be incredibly cool to have yourself give you directions off your
I
device.
tell myself where to go and what to do, Neil. Yes. Well, it's even more funny. I could go into some stories about telling my husband where to go in the car, and it goes on and on. But yes, it's tremendously fun, and of course just so fulfilling that I've been able to tie that into a message and share an important set of principles that are helping people both in their individual lives and in organisations.
What about you, Marisa? Any crazy stories from you at all?
From tech? No, not as interesting as Karen's. I worked in the boring old tech, corporate tech world.
Yeah.
I like to say it's much funner working in the startup space.
So what is your grand vision there for the next few years. Is there anything else you can share with us today about the direction you're going to take and what you want to achieve?
We both have a destination in mind, don't we, Marisa?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's world domination.
World domination.
I love it.
Yes. So right from the beginning, it's because Karen and I are sort of both very, very similar in that respect. You know, we think big. Right from the beginning, it was, you know, we're going to do this. It's going to be global world domination, rolling out our programs for women of all socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to afford to participate across the globe. So as I mentioned before, you know, we launched in New York. We have our Sydney, Melbourne operations. Now we've launched in San Francisco. Later this year, we'll be launching in Singapore as our stepping stone into Asia. Next year will be location. So we've identified one, which is Tel Aviv, and then we'll map that out. Which countries make sense after that. So absolutely continue to scale globally.
So if we do have anyone listening that's been inspired by your story today and possibly feel held back and want to do something about it, can you just remind those ladies your web details or how anyone can contact your team with any questions after hearing our conversation today?
Yes, well, one of the most important pieces of all of this is when you empower women, you empower everybody. You empower families, you empower communities, and equal opportunities in every industry and equal pay and equal, it leads to equality for all of us to thrive. So it's really so phenomenal, Neil, for you to have invited us to be on the show and to really highlight and put a spotlight on this aspect of what's happening in tech. So thank you very much. And I can personally be contacted social media left and right at the GPS Girl, LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I love to connect with people and hear their crazy GPS stories and how they are navigating change powerfully in their businesses and lives. So really love to connect at the GPS Girl. And Marisa?
Yeah, absolutely. So we love, so just to reiterate as well, Elevacao is a not-for-profit. So we do rely on generous donations from corporates, high net worth individuals. So absolutely reach out if you fall into one of those categories. Also, obviously, for women wanting to go through our program, you can go to our website, which is elevacao.org. You can also email me directly at marisa.warren, and Marisa is with one R and one S, so marisa.warren at elevacao.org. And that's, and same, we're across LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well, both myself and also the Elevacao brand.
Well, a huge thanks for coming on today. I absolutely love the story of two people that met in an elevator and dared to speak to each other. And now you're empowering women, families, communities, not just in San Francisco, not just in the Silicon Valley, but Singapore, Tel Aviv, and actually looking to scale that concept globally. I think it's a fantastic thing. And I wish you the best of luck. And you've got an open invite to come back on here and keep me up to speed with exactly how you're getting on. But more than anything, a big thank you for coming on and sharing that vital story today.
Thank you. And you have reached your destination.
Oh!
I love it.
Oh, I love it. Oh, man. I'm going to have to get you to email me. You're listening to the Tech Blog Writer podcast in that voice at some point. You do realise that, Karen?
Yeah.
Seriously, a big thank you to both of you for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. The fact that less than 2% of venture funding goes to women in the US, and yet the women that do get funding deliver an average of 35% higher ROI than male-led firms, is an astounding stat, isn't it? But I love how Marisa and Karen have turned that negative into a positive and are making a real difference by empowering women in tech. But this is also another story of how the universe gives us all that nudge in the right direction sometimes. I love that story of how they met in the elevator. A few months ago, I was chatting with the guys at Wakelet on the show, and the founder flew from the other side of the world for funding and was turned down. And he found himself feeling sorry for himself at the luggage carousel, and he got talking to a fellow passenger who would turn out to be the missing piece of his startup story. So for anyone listening out there, look out for those signs. And if the universe gives you that helping hand, make sure you pay attention. So we have people listening to this show today in over 165 different countries, and I want to hear more stories like this. So if what we've talked about today resonates with you, please, please, please share with me your story. So email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. But it's time for me to walk off into the sunset one more time. So thanks for listening and tuning in today, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.